The Japanese Film Festival's in full swing in Australia right now, with audiences across the country flocking to catch a huge range of films. I spoke to the director of the festival, Margarett Cortez, about what we can expect. Margarett, thanks so much for joining us on SWITCHCast.
Thanks for having me, Charlie.
What are some of the highlights of this year's festival?
So the 2017 festival lineup is a very special one for us because I feel like it is finally the year that we're able to showcase a new generation of Japanese cinema. Up until now, showcasing mainstream Japanese films has been a major part of the Japanese Film Festival. However, throughout the past few years, there have slowly been more Japanese film titles being released nationally, and of course, it's also which is great because it's also part of our mission is to bring Japanese cinema to mainstream Australian cinema. So this year we've been very lucky to be able to source films that have been going around in the international festival circuit, as well as invite, I think, the largest number of special guests from Japan that we've been able to in recent years. In Sydney, we're having 4 special guest sessions. The first one being a movie called A Double Life, which screened at Raindance last year, Vladivostok International Film Festival, as well as the New York Asian Film Festival. We'll be welcoming the lead actor Mugi Kadowaki, as well as the director Yoshiyuki Kishi. And director Kishi is really interesting because he's had a very long career spanning 20 years or more in documentary filmmaking. And in 2016, he debuted with his first narrative feature, which is A Double Life. It's based on a Japanese novel by Mariko Koike, but it's also inspired by French artist Sophie Calle and her work, where she picks a random stranger and stalks them, basically. So it's inspired by Sophie Calle, and it's about a graduate student who obviously uncovers the double life of the stranger that she's been following around. Another director who's coming is the director Ozaki for the film Her Sketchbook, which is a very quirky slice of life film about a hikikomori. So hikikomori is a Japanese phenomenon of people withdrawing from society and becoming shut-ins. So the main actor in that film is actually also Mugi Kadowaki, who's appearing in A Double Life. Yeah, she's a very talented, versatile actor, and definitely part of like a rising crop of young screen talents in Japan. Third, and what I'm most excited about, is for the film Snow Woman, which premiered at the Tokyo International Film Festival last year. So the director, who also co-wrote the script and appears as the title character, Snow Woman, her name is Kiki Sugino, and she's in her early 30s, still quite young, because I guess in Australia, when we say emerging director, they normally be in their late 20s, early 30s. But Kiki has produced films as well as acted in them, and she basically debuted in South Korean films. She was born in Japan but of Korean background. So she made her debut in one of her debut films was in Kim Ki-duk's film Time. And she went on to produce films by directors such as Koji Fukada, who won at Cannes recently for the film Harmonium. So she'll be joined in Sydney by the lead male actor, Munetaka Aoki, who's appeared in films. Some people might recognize him from Martin Scorsese's Silenced, and he also featured prominently in the hit action film, the Rurouni Kenshin trilogy. And last but not the least, there's the Tokyo Night Sky is Always a Denser Shade of Blue, which I love just because of the title. It's very much fun to say it. And the director Ishii is coming. So it's his second visit to Sydney with the Japanese Film Festival, and this time around he's here to promote his film, which premiered at Berlin International Film Festival this year. And I can't think of a film that really captures Tokyo more than this film does. It's got a bit of melancholy in it, as well as a bit of slice of life, but it's definitely art house. So that's one main difference from the other films. So this is one of the few indie art house titles in the program.
Well, some exciting guests to look forward to. The festival's making its way around the country, having visited Canberra, Adelaide, Brisbane and Perth so far, with Sydney and Melbourne still to come. How have audiences received this year's films?
The opening film has been such a huge hit in the past cities, and it's sold out sessions in Canberra as well as in Adelaide, and almost full house in Perth and Brisbane. So that's Mumon, the Land of Stealth, which is just so much fun to watch, because it's got a bit of tradition, but because the director is Yoshihiro Nakamura, it's also a bit rock and roll. So it's great fun, and it appeals to both lovers of traditional Japan as well as lovers of Japanese pop culture. The animated title in this corner of the world has also been very well received. In Perth, they really like their crime thrillers, so movies like Memoirs of a Murderer and Gokoroku, Traces of Sin, have done really well in Perth, whereas in Brisbane we find that they tend to like their pop culture, so titles such as Kiseki, Sobito of That Day, as well as Teichi, Battle of Supreme High, which is a brilliant comedy. Both of those titles also did really well in Brisbane.
The festival's celebrating its 21st year, so why do you think it's proven to be so popular here in Australia?
I think it's because the Australians like to travel, I think, and when we're not able to travel because oftentimes it's so expensive and so hard to get out of Australia, we tend to watch films, which is also why the bigger international films, Sydney Film Festival and Melbourne International Film Festival have been so popular. Specifically in the case of the Japanese Film Festival, I guess the Japanese culture has always had such a long history of exposure in Australia, and it's got all sort of facets of life in general. I mean, we've got shops like Muji, Uniqlo, Daiso, and there are also this Japanese food is also very popular. So that level of everyday exposure, I guess, tends to cultivate a particular appreciation of other Japanese things such as art and film and cinema, of course.
Well, we have a regular segment on SWITCHCast where we ask our hosts to choose one film that they'd recommend this week and why. We also like to ask our guests, so if there was one that you would choose from inside the festival or further afield, what would it be?
I would actually recommend it sounds like a very niche film, but if to those who are up for a challenge, I would highly recommend watching Anti-Porno. So it's directed by Sion Sono, who's an infamous Japanese director. He's as prolific as Miike Takashi, who debuted with his 100th film this year. But Anti-Porno is it's a subversive art house film, and nothing in it is what it seems, basically, and you just have to take it as it comes. It's a commentary on the film industry in general, and at the same time it also tackles a lot of feminist issues. So that's something that we just don't see in Japanese film in general, or in film in general, I think. So it's a brilliant film, and I highly recommend people who are up for something different, who are up for a challenge, and who really want to explore a different kind of Japanese cinema away from your usual Ozu or Studio Ghibli or your Akira Kurosawa. I think apart from the titles I mentioned earlier, Anti-Porno is one of my must-watch films from the JFF program.
And how can our listeners get more information on the festival?
Yes, so all the film information and the schedule are available on JapaneseFilmFestival.net. You can also add us on Facebook, where you'll find links to the trailers as well as the different film information pages on our website.
Well, we're looking forward to the Japanese Film Festival hitting Sydney and Melbourne. Margaret, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks very much, Charlie.
And we'll be covering the 2017 Japanese Film Festival when it hits Sydney from the 16th of November and Melbourne from the 23rd of November. So keep an eye out on maketheswitch.com.au and our social media channels for all of our reviews.